All right, here's our last quiz to go through. And I hope you are starting to enjoy these, as I think they are fun once you get the hang of them. All right, the first one, greatest common factor, x. You have left an x plus 4 on the inside. Now we are multiplying, so anything on the top can reduce with anything on the bottom, but you cannot, if you have something added, that has to go together. So I got to be able to cross off that whole thing or nothing. And then I got this, and I've got this. So I see x plus 4, those are gone. And I'm left with a 5 on the top, and an x times an x is an x squared. My answer is C. Number 2, simplest form. All right, remember this is over 1. So we are just multiplying, so anything on the top can reduce on anything on the bottom. So you can do it two ways. You could either just start canceling, or you can multiply and then cancel. I'm just going to start canceling. So I see the 2 and the 4. Divide them each by 2. I see the 2 y's and 1 y. So one of those y's will cancel out with that y. So I'm left with on the top 3x to the third times x. So that is 3x to the fourth on top. 2y on the bottom. Hopefully there's that answer, and there is. All right, the next one, notice it is division, so we are going to change it to multiplication and flip this over. Now we're going to cross cancel. Anywhere on the top, anywhere on the bottom. Notice there's no adding or subtracting, so we don't have to be as careful as we were up there. So I see the 5 and the 2, so I'm going to do 1 and 2, the 5 and the 10. Let's see, I've got 2 x's right here, but I have 2 x's here, so that can cancel with both of those. And I've got a y here and a y here, so we are left with 2. Always start at the left so you don't miss anything. Y to the third times 2. So that's 4y to the third, all over. Gone. 4y to the third. Done. It's over 1. Okay, now we're going into subtracting. So we got to have a common denominator, and in this case we do. And it's subtraction. So this negative, it gets distributed to this, but it also, if there was another thing being added, you have to make sure you distribute that negative through. So we are left with x squared minus, and I'm going to put them in order of descending order. So minus 3x minus 28 all over the common denominator of x plus 4. So we need to factor the top. Hopefully x plus 4 is a factor. Let's see, we need two numbers that add to give you a negative 3 and multiply to give you a negative 28. Oh, how about 4 and 7? Let's see, and this has to be negative. Does that work? Yep. Okay, so the top here is x plus 4 and x minus 7. Perfect, because that's what we wanted to happen, is those to cross off. It doesn't always work that way. If it didn't cross off, our final answer would have been this middle part. So we're left with x minus 7, that's it. What's the LCM of those two? Okay, so we have to get the factors of everything, the highest power. So let's first look at this. This can divide out and get x minus 2. This is the difference of two squares, so that factors to x minus 2 and x plus 2. So what do we have in both? Okay, we have an x. We have an x minus 2. Remember, those go together. Okay, ready? And these both each have 1. The power here is a 1, so I don't have to write it twice. Okay, I don't write it twice. And then the x plus 2. You take the highest power. So if this one was x minus 2 to the third, I would have written x minus 2 to the third. You take whichever one has a higher power, but they were the same. They both were 1. So my answer is B. And 6, we are adding. We need a common denominator. So we have to get that LCM for the bottom. Least common, or greatest common, hello, I'm losing my mind. Common denominator, but by finding the least common multiple. So I've got a 5, and x to the second. See, there's an example where there's two x's, but this has a power of 2 and this has a power of 1, so I'm going to take the highest power. So that's my LCM. So that means I need to multiply this by x to get this, and then I have to do the top by the same. And this one I have to multiply by 5, top by the same. So I'm going to end up with 4x over 5x squared plus 5 times 5 is 25 over 5x squared. See, that's what we wanted to happen, because now we have a common denominator and we can add them and get 4x plus 25 all over 5x squared. The bottom just stays the same. Okay. So there is that. One moment, I need to do something. Okay, so now we're up over here. We're dividing. So again, because there's adding and subtracting, I can't just say 3x and 3x and cross these off. Because it's being added and subtracted. If it was multiplied, yes. All right, so we're going to go in here and see what is a common factor of all three of these that we can take out. I can see a 3, and then I see that they each all have at least one x, so I can pull out a 3 and an x. And then I see what's left. My signs are the same. So if I divide a 3x out of there, I'm going to be left with a 2x squared. And if I divide a 3x out of here, I'm going to get a 4x. And if I divide a 3x out of here, I'm left with just the 1. And now the good news is this is multiplied, so therefore we can cancel those, and we are left with this for an answer. Where is it? There it is. All right. Okay, the next one, you see we have 3 trinomials. So our hope is that something will cancel once we factor. It may not, but we can try it. So let's go, I'm going to use a little room up here. I'm going to take the top one first. We need 2 numbers that add to give you 4 and multiply to give you a negative 5. Let's see, multiply to give you 5. So 1 and 5, 1 and 5, negative, negative. So that would be x minus 1 times x plus 5 on the top. Let's do the bottom one. What plus what equals 9, and what times what equals 20. Oh, 4 and 5, that'll work. Okay, so x plus 4 and x plus 5. Nice, yay, these cancel. Remember, the whole thing has to go or nothing. I can't just do the x's here, So my answer is H. Now, when we look at 9, we are dividing, and this is the synthetic division. And remember, we look at this first one and we say, how many times do we multiply this by what to get this? And then that goes above this one. And the answer is x. So x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. And then remember, you switch the sign and draw the line. These cancel. You're left with 3x minus 2x, which is 1x. Pull this down, which is plus 4, and repeat. X times what gives you x? Plus 1. X times 1 is x. X times 2 is 2. Switch the signs of both. These cross off. You're left with a remainder of plus 2 over x plus 2. A. No, that's not A. B. That's x plus 1 and x plus 2. All right, solve. Okay, so we've got a fraction equal to a fraction, so we can do cross multiplying now. You have to be careful, because if there's 2 things being added here, that doesn't work. 2 fractions, but it's just 1, so we can cross multiply. 8x equals 6 times, did everybody remember the parenthesis there? This goes in parentheses together. 8x equals 6x minus 24, subtract 6x, 2x equals negative 24, divided by 2, x equals negative 12. That'd be F. All right, then we get to this, and it says, what's the lowest common divisor of all 3 of these? So you're looking in the bottom. And we're seeing an x plus 2, an x, and a 3. And we need to include the highest power of each of those. There's only one x plus 2 in here, so x plus 2, and that stays together, so put that in a parenthesis. There's only one x all by itself, there's no powers, and there's only one whole number, so it would be that. And next, solve. So a couple ways you could do it is getting that least common multiple for all of them, or you can put these together and then cross multiply. Either way will work. I see these are super easy to get a common denominator, so I want to do that because all I'd have to do is multiply this by 4 to get the 4x's. So this becomes an 8 over 4x. And I can add these two on the same side here. So 8 plus 6 is 14 over 4x is equal to 4 over x minus 2. Now the truth is you could do what? You could simplify this, can't you? So this would be a 7 and this would be a 2 because it's a fraction. You cannot do it here because of the subtraction. Now we can cross multiply. 7 times x minus 2 equals 4 times 2x. I have 7x minus 14 equals 8x. I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. And I got negative 14. All right, and lastly, Carl can do some gardening. These are those whole job things we're talking about in the last section. Carl can do the gardening. So the gardening is considered a job in 3 hours. So Renee can do the gardening in 2 hours. So how long will it take them to do the gardening if they work together? Okay, so we want to think of a unit of like 1 hour, like one job, 1 hour. How much can they get done in an hour? How much of the job is done in 1 hour? If it takes 3, that means they're getting 1/3 of the job done in an hour. That's like, remember this is their rate, 1/3 of the job per hour. How about if they get it done in 2 hours? How much will they do per hour? 1/2. So you need to get a common denominator, which is 6 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3. So I get 2 over 6h plus 3 over 6h equals 1. 5 6h equals 1 times by 6 over 5. And h is 6 over 5, which is 1 1/5. There you go. It's not here. No, it is here. 1.2. That's 1 2/10, which reduces to 1.5. It's a little tricky, but just try to keep looking at what they give you and think, what's the rate per this amount, per one of these? So per 1 hour, they can get 1/3 of this done. Per 2 hours, they can get in 1 hour, they can get half done. So 1/2 of their job per hour. This they're getting 1/3 of their job done per hour and set it equal to 1. All right, hope that helps. Take care. Bye-bye.